kind of giving you my 2 cents is that obviously God would have to be outside of time. Therefore, he's unaffected by time. Kind of like a computer, man who made the computer, he's not in the computer running around pressing buttons. He's unaffected by the computer, just like God's unaffected by his creation. He's outside his creation.
Well, I mean, if you believe that, if you believe that we're a computer program, that could be possible. I mean, there's nothing saying that we aren't. We could be. I mean, there's nothing really proven that we're real. We even exist at all, honestly. But
well,
that's a pretty big jump, though.
Actually, I think there's pretty good evidence that we live in a real world.
I agree. I agree with Suave. We definitely live in a real world, but I think I personally
there's nothing
think
in this world that
logical
suggests that
conclusion.
there's an outside creator.
Well, I mean, I think we agreed earlier that there obviously had to have been a point of least entropy, which would have been the moment of creation.
Right.
Obviously, you don't believe there's a creator, but I do.
That doesn't suggest a creator. That only suggests a beginning.
Well, who got it started?
What says that there has to be a who involved in that?
What got it started?
How am I supposed to know? How does anybody know? Nobody knows. Just because we don't know doesn't make it God did it. That's the God of the gaps.
I'm curious what Suave thinks of this too. If you actually look at all the religions and you look at all their religious books, the Bible is the only book that actually states God created the heaven and the earth. So God created time in the beginning, matter,
really,
earth,
because
space.
Odin created that stuff too.
But in all the other books, like for example, if you look at Greek mythology, right? These Greek gods, they're within their universe. But God of the Bible, he created it outside of the universe. That's the only book that actually accurately represents what we know about science. How did the writers of the Bible know this? Because for thousands of years, they believed in the steady state theory that the universe was eternal, but we now know that
they
not
also
to be
used
true.
to say that God was part of this universe because God spoke directly to Adam and came to Adam, and Adam looked at God.
Of course, he's unaffected by the universe. He created the universe.
He
can come in and do what he wants.
He's inside of it. It says that God is omniscient, omnipresent. He's everywhere.
Yeah, but Dave, let me ask you something, Dave, just for the heck of it, just something to think about.
Sure.
When we look at the end, the time as we know it here, let's say another couple thousand years, let's say 10,000 years, whatever, in history, what happens? What do you expect to see with this planet, our solar system?
Well, I expect that people will probably be dead and that this planet will be uninhabitable by that point.
Why?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're wrecking the environment on a daily basis. We put so much smoke and
yeah, I'm not going to argue.
Crap into the air every day. The planet's just not going to be able to sustain us eventually.
But even if we didn't do that, what would happen to the sun? And
well, at that point in time, I wouldn't expect anything. Sun's got a pretty long lifetime ahead of it.
Well, but eventually, someday,
the sun's going to expand. It's going to swallow up all the way up past Mars.
Well, do you believe at some point we'll experience heat death and we'll just be nothing but blackness, maybe the occasional glimmer of a black hole? Like, I mean, that seems pretty
well, black
depressing.
holes don't have any glimmer, but if the universe keeps expanding the way that it is, eventually there'd come a time when you wouldn't be able to see any other stars. But
isn't a black hole the collapsing of like a star? Isn't that what a black hole is?
Yeah, but you can't see a black hole.
Well, you can see like maybe the after effects of the collapsing of
you can
the star.
see the ripples of the gravitational disturbance.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so like at the point of heat death, at some point trillions of years from now, I mean, is that what you believe the universe is heading towards?
All reasonable theories point that way.
But it sounds pretty depressing.
Here's a thought I have.
Yeah, well, that doesn't have to be pretty, but just because something's depressing, it's not,
Yes,
not
Swami,
what you
go
want
ahead,
it to
Swami.
be. Doesn't make it any less possible, you know?
Okay, so here's my thought. It's only just something that I noticed a number of years ago. I don't know how many years ago, but it's maybe many. I don't know. I've always thought about this, at least for years. The thing that I noticed in the Bible that was interesting to me was that there, not only do we, and it ties in with people's fear of death, is that we have a fear of death. And so a lot of people will say, okay, that's why man created religion, right? And whether it's the reason or whatever happened, I don't know. But it is nice to think that you would live forever. But let's add it to the earth. Let's add it to all the people. And as we understand humanity and continuing, some form of life, something life-wise. Well, it's interesting to me that in the Bible, whatever it's speaking about, maybe it's talking about, I guess, afterlife, whatever, but it talks about, and I'm thinking maybe just imagine would know better how to answer this, or Sabella, but it does talk about creating a new heaven and a new earth. And actually to last forever, that would be the only way that could happen that I can think of. And maybe I'm wrong.
Well, if I can respond to that, because even if I look at the laws of science, right? You know, the first law of thermodynamics, and just in a very layman type way, it really just says that energy and matter cannot be destroyed, which would imply that creation existed sometime in the past. Now, the second law, though, that states disorder increases with time. So if you think about it, that's going to force us to conclude the earth was at one time more organized and integrated and even more beautiful than it is now. The universal tendency of things to run down and to fall apart, that would show that the universe had to be wound up at the start.
Are you trying to say the earth isn't spinning as fast as it used to?
No, I'm just saying based on
I think that could
well,
be.
actually, they do say it is slowing down.
I would think so.
Slightly.
I do agree with yeah, it is slowing down. But my whole point is all evidence points to a perfect creation, just like you said.
We're not in a perfect universe. I mean, even the planet itself, it's not a perfect. There's a lot of places where 70% of the planet is not inhabitable by people. The universe, you get outside the atmosphere and everything's out there is trying to kill you. It's inhospitable to people in most places. That's why we have houses built, because outside is inhospitable to us. So we build houses with air conditioning, because you go outside, it's hot as fuck in the summertime, it's cold as fuck in the wintertime. So we build these things to make the world inside more hospitable. To say that it's ever a perfect planet is just...
Well, my whole point, David, in what I was saying with the first and second laws of thermodynamics, if it all points to a beginning, and if it all points to somebody had to wind it up or something had to wind it up, why is it so illogical to conclude there had to be a creator?
Something had to wind it up.
Of course, if everything's winding down, someone wound it up to be able to wind it down. I mean, isn't that logical?
No, because you're talking about the world like it's a clock, and it's not.
Well, it is. If we go back far enough in time, even people who believe in billions of years, they'll look back far enough in time to that least point of entropy, which would have been that singularity at the Big Bang, and boom, everything came into existence. So obviously, I mean,
but that doesn't imply any kind of winding or unwinding. What you're talking about is the release of energy and where that energy is going. Because if everybody's right and the Big Bang happened the way that we think that it happened, then there was a singular point where all of the matter and all the energy in the universe existed at one fixed point. Now, a point is a dimensionless thing. It has no length, width, or volume at all. So if that's the case, then to be able to say that it was definitely God and that he did this, you have to ask yourself, if he exists throughout all of time, what was he doing before that 14 billion years ago when he decided to create the universe?
Well, that assumes that he is affected by time. I mean, time, he created time. Outside of time, it's it's like explaining colors to a blind person. I mean, God is outside of time. We can't comprehend that. That's the thing. I mean, if I can fit the infinite God in my 3-pound brain, I mean, would he be worth worshiping? Of course not. He's infinite.
Okay, well, I mean, you're going off the presupposition that there is a God when there's no evidence for this God. And you're trying
it depends what you define as evidence. I see design all around us. You don't. I mean, maybe that's more subjective.
I see process all around us. I see the process of things developing over time. I don't see things that were just put down, because in that case, you know, when we were put down, then we would have been put down perfect. And how do you explain juvenile diabetes? How do you explain bone cancer in children? That is not something that was perfectly designed. That is something that is still developing, that has flaws.
Well, of course, mutations, the accumulation of mutations over time, we're going to have these types of diseases and disorders. I mean, this is just evidence of a fallen world.
Mutations? That rules out perfectly designed, because a perfectly designed thing should be non-changing, because it's perfect. A perfect thing never has to be changed. If something is perfect, it doesn't need improvement. It doesn't need anything to happen to it. It is just perfect.
If you're implying the Big Bang theory is true, Dave, how do you explain, say, the Horizion problem, which seems to be a big problem for Big Bang theorists? Like, how would you explain it, being a physics major?
What about the Horizion problem?
Well, like in a nutshell, in the model, correct me if I'm wrong, the universe begins at an infinitely small state called a singularity, correct? And then it rapidly expands from there?
Yeah, and it's still expanding today.
Okay. I just want to explain the problem to you and see how you explain it, because according to this model, when the universe was still very small, it would have developed different temperatures in different locations. So let's just suppose, I'll try and simplify this, point A is hot, point B is cold. Today, the universe has expanded, and points A and B are now widely separated, right, Dave? Are we on the same page in this?
Yeah.
Okay, but we know the universe has an extremely uniform temperature at great distances beyond the farthest known galaxies. I mean, are we in agreement here?
Yeah, I can't argue.
Okay, so in other words, points A and points B have almost exactly the same temperature today. We know this from the electromagnetic radiation coming from all directions in the form of microwaves, right? The microwave background.
Here's the thing too, and this is if I go too fast, stop me. But we also observe that the expansion of the universe is accelerating, which implies an increase in energy in the universe that we can't explain. Also, the speed at which things are moving are faster than what they are, which shows an unexplained mass out there. We call these things dark energy and dark matter. We have no explanation for those either. There's a lot of things that we don't know.
I consider that dark science.
Still doesn't say that there's a divine creator existing outside of space and time that created it all.
But I'm just saying, in the Big Bang model, if it's true, right? How are points A and B the same temperature? Because the only way they can be the same temperature, Dave, is that they need to exchange energy, right? But at the end of the day, there would be a huge light travel time problem, because they must have exchanged light multiple times. You would need
things are getting further away from each other. They could have exchanged lights multiple times when they're closer together. We don't know.
But but we know the universe is.
You're inferring that the God of the gaps is a acceptable reason to say that there is definitely a divine creator. Because we don't know something, God must have done it. That's just not the way it works.
Well, I'm just saying there seems to be pretty big problems with the Big Bang.
Maybe someday we'll find out. We don't know everything yet.
So if we don't know everything, and
if the God of the Bible is right, that should all be explained in the Bible. It's not.
It is all explained.